every day, 22 vets kill themselves. 2 active duty military personnel kill themselves. So in the hour or so that we're going to be in here today, we're going to lose another one. And these are the suicides we know about. Doesn't include the young man that's driving his motorcycle at 90 miles an hour, the young woman driving a car recklessly, the former soldier we see in the streets dead from an overdose. 1% of the population are veterans, and they consist of 22% of the suicides nationwide. Deployed females your age, are 12 times more likely to commit suicides than college students your age. Now this is a symptom of a much larger, much complex issue. Since 9/11, nearly 3 million men and women have been deployed on the global war on terror. And that's the largest group of veterans and returning veterans since World War II. And the service to the country comes at a price, sometimes a very high price, more than just the men and women who return in coffins with a flag on. Post-traumatic stress, we don't have numbers yet on the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. They're called Operation Iraqi Freedom, OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, which is Afghanistan. But we do know this, 31% of the Vietnam vets are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And that number is growing as more and more of our Vietnam vets come to grips with what's going on. Traumatic brain injuries, for those of us that follow sports, this is a big issue, right? The post-concussion, all the concussion issues. Well, you saw what happened. You see what happened when that bomb exploded, the roadside bomb that I called an IED. Did you see the concussion wave that went out? Everybody within that wave is going to suffer some kind of head trauma, and repeated head trauma can cause organic changes to the brain. Drug and alcohol, 70% of the deployed men and women are prescribed daily pain medication and or anxiety medication, daily. And so imagine what happens. 3.6 million prescriptions every year to our deployed military. And when they come back, it's cut off. And if you've been getting daily pain medication, Oxycontin, hydrocodone, daily anti-anxiety medication, and it's cut off, what happens? How are you going to handle that? 30% of the people returning from deployments report having a drug or alcohol issue. That's 30%. So you got to figure out how many that really is, because if 30% are honest enough, what's the real number? Military sexual trauma. Approximately 20% of the women in the military have reported one type or another of sexual trauma, and 5% of the men. 20% of the women. How many people here think that's an accurate number? Anybody? If you report military sexual trauma, traditionally what's happened is the person making the report gets transferred. They may take action ultimately against the person, but if you're a sergeant and you're going to report your platoon leader, your company commander or captain, really going to do that, you think? Or you just grin and bear it? And bearing in mind, 5% of the men reported. Survivor guilt. What you saw in this video was not post-traumatic stress necessarily, it was survivor guilt. There was a time, I was a military history major, so I hope nobody here took that as a major because it's pretty useless. But there was a time, and you can think about the movies, right, where single combat, war was won by the best, the strongest, the smartest, the most clever, best guy with an axe or a sword or something like that. How many people here saw Saving Private Ryan? All right, remember the opening scene as he's going across Omaha Beach? Do you think only the smart guys made it across? Or the clever ones? Or the ones that were skillful? Or is it entirely random? Is it just the luck or the bad luck, as it may be? And so you get survivor guilt. This man on this video was torturing himself because he thinks he let down the men of his unit, and people died and people were maimed because of that. So he has the guilt associated with that. but it's sometimes not even that complex. Sometimes it's simply, look, I served, I'm single, I got really nothing going for me, and my friend Susan, she was married, she had 2 kids, she had a great job to go back to, she had her whole life ahead of her, and she got killed and I didn't. She took patrol duty for me that night and died. I should have been the one that died, because I got nothing and she had it all. I don't deserve to be here. As a result, we've seen an increase in veteran-related crime. And for the first time, we're actually paying attention to this. In our generation, about 1% of the population have served in the military. And right now, 11% of the Pennsylvania state prison population are veterans. We did an abstract at Lancaster County Prison, and we found out of about 1,000 prisoners, 250 self-reported as being veterans. So that's about 25%. When you take out the hooey that's involved, it might be 20%. That's still far higher than that 1%. So this is a new problem, right? This is something new. You read about it, see about it. It's something we've just invented. It's something wrong with your generation, right? You're soft, you're weak. No. If you study history, you'll find after the Civil War we had the Wild West. After the First World War we had the Roaring Twenties. After World War II, and the biggest problem I've run into is the World War II people. Judge, we beat the Depression. We saved the world from fascism. We came home. We put down our weapons and we made a life. We got jobs. Well, part of that, yes, you had a good GI Bill. And yes, there was jobs at the time. But also, the highest divorce rate in American history is 1946 and 1947. They did a study of state prisons in the north central United States. And between 1948 and 1950, 30% of the population were World War II combat vets. And in World War II, less than 30% of the combat veterans ever fired a named shot. Ever looked at an enemy and pulled the trigger. And the number here for OEF and OIF is 90% or higher. Those of us who lived through the 60s, and I don't see many of you in the room, but the 60s, a generation, it was the generation of love, the generation making changes. And what did you hear over and over and over again? I need love because Dad never told me he loved me. Dad would come home from work, he'd have his 2 martinis, and he was in his own world, And I'm going to tell everybody how much I love him. I'm hippie and free love. Why was Dad like that? Because Dad fought World War II, and Dad's coming home. And Dad knows the mechanism you need to survive when you're in combat is a wall between you and the person next to you. Because when they die, it hurts too much. And so they paid it forward by having this generation say, why is my dad not there for me? He's physically present, but Dad is not there for me. If you go back, and again, if you're not a military history major, I give you my sympathy, but I actually had to read once Euripides. Anybody here read Euripides? Yeah, nobody should ever read Euripides. But he did the Chronicle of the Trojan Wars. Euripides talks about, I came back from the siege of Troy, and I went back to my village, and I couldn't relate to anyone. They were talking about the most inane things. I couldn't handle that. At night, I would go to sleep, and the ghosts of my comrades would visit me. Euripides has post-traumatic stress 3,000 years ago. So this is an abstract problem, right? 1% of the population. Any veterans in here? Good for you. Thanks for your service. Any of you Marines? Okay, I'll talk slow and use small words. Semper Fi. So we had 4 people. Now raise your hands if you've had a parent, an aunt, an uncle, or brother and sister serve in the military. Now take a look around the room. Is this an isolated problem, or does this affect all of us? We all did. I had an uncle who was in Korea. And you talk, you can find that by just about everybody in here. So this is a problem that impacts us as a community, as a society, as a nation. What are we going to do about it? After Vietnam, we didn't do anything. I have a friend of mine, he came back after his second tour in Vietnam, and he landed in San Francisco, and all he wanted to do was spend that first night with his wife. And he couldn't because of incarceration. His wife was in prison because somebody threw blood on him and she punched the guy in the face. That's how we treated our Vietnam vets. They'd come home ashamed of their service. We as a population unable to distinguish between the causes or the justness of the war and the sacrifices made by the men and the women. Women in the military, 15% of the military are women, and it's a growing number. Of those 15%, 15% got deployed and they're single mothers. Think about what that means. You have 2 kids and you're now deployed. What are you going to do with your kids? Got to solve that problem, right? World War II, greatest war in American history, greatest war in world history. We had exactly 15 women killed by hostile fire in World War II. 15. And so far, as of 2011, in the OIF, we've lost over 150 women by hostile fire. You hear about women in combat positions. We should allow women to combat leadership positions. Don't know about that, but I guarantee you women are in combat in these locations. Because if you look at a map, can you show me any line where the U.S. forces are and the enemy forces are, or is it all around you? Is it everywhere? The enemy in Iraq learned that we have a policy we don't leave behind mechanized equipment if it's disabled. So there'd be a roadside bomb, something would be disabled, and the engineering and motorized units go out and pick it up. Well, they know that. So they sit there in ambush. So the women that are mechanics there are just as much in combat as women leading combat patrols. So, what are we going to do about this? Well, there's a lot of things I can't do. I'm a judge. My name is Jeff Wright. I'm a judge here in Lancaster County, criminal trial judge. You're students of Millersville, most of you. What are we going to do about this? What can we do about this? Well, there's other things you can do outside of what I'm about to talk about, but hopefully we can all be together on this. We started a court, it's called the Lancaster County Veterans Court. The Lancaster County Veterans Court is designed to work with men and women who've served their country honorably and since the time of their discharge have picked up criminal charges for one reason or the other. Now, let me explain the difference between Veterans Court and any other sort of supervision system. In standard supervision, somebody pleads guilty. They may get some jail time, then they get parole or probation after, and they get supervised. And the Lancaster County Probation Department supervises about 12,000 people here in Lancaster County. The average standard supervision probation officer has about 120 or 125 individuals on their workload. And so what that means is in standard supervision, the individual may have one appointment a month, then you're going to see a probation officer a year later. She can give you a better view of this. But you might have one a month, one every 6 weeks. You have your appointment. The probation officer has limited time available because just think how many people they have to see in a week, in a day, in a month. And so you show up, hopefully. A lot of times your car breaks down. Cars break down all the time for people on parole and probation, constantly breaking down. But as soon as they show up, possibly on time, probably not, and they sit down and say, okay, Sue, how's it going? It's going great. Where are you living? I'm still at the same place. Okay, same place, good. Are you applying for jobs? Yeah, where'd you apply? Carrabba's out back, McDonald's, all the places I can't eat anymore. Okay, that's good. You using? No, I'm not using anything. Want me to drug test you? No. I peed just before I came in. But what were the odds of that? So I can't. Okay, well, the next time you come in, you're going to be tested. And the next time might be 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So the calculation goes in, all right, I can use, it takes that long to get out of the system. How about that? And that's not a knock on our probation department because they are vastly overworked and generally underappreciated and hugely underpaid, might I add. They come into Veterans Court, here's what happens. We take a look at what their needs are, what their treatment needs are. Is it military sexual trauma, survivor guilt, post-traumatic stress? Is it drug addiction, alcohol addiction? Is it a combination of all those things? How are we going to treat that? And we as a team sit down and take a look at the treatment. Person may need to go to MST counseling. They may need to have counseling with their spouse or their significant other. They're going to have to get drug and alcohol testing. They're all going to be given a color. They're all going to be given a color at the beginning. And there are two colors I use in my court. I'm from Pittsburgh. Anybody want to guess what the colors are? They're not orange and black. I promise you that. They're gold and black. And every day you call in. It's your job to call in, and there's going to be a recording. If a recording says gold is called today, you have until 5 o'clock to get to the probation department to give a drug test. If you're not there by 5, that's a positive test, and you got to deal with the judge. On the weekends, you got to get up, call, and is your color called? If it is, you got to be in the probation department by 8 o'clock. If you're not there, it's a positive test. Sunday morning, guess what you're doing? Same call, same thing. This is random testing. You might get called 3 days in a row. You might not get called for 2 weeks. That's random testing. You can't sit there and calculate how long it's going to take to get the weed out of my system, which, by the way, gets out faster than you think, so don't give me this 30-day thing. We know all the howtobeatthetest.com games, which is actually a website. You can take a look at it. We've seen it before, nothing new. But they have to do community service. They have to see their probation officer anywhere up to 3 times a week. 3 times a week. They have to pay on their fines and costs. They have to do all the treatment we tell them to do. They have to come see me every Thursday afternoon at 1:30. And every Thursday afternoon, I get a report on how that individual's doing, and I address them. And I might say, Bill, you went to all your appointments. You applied for a job, we know that. We checked it out because we can. Your drug tests are all negative, you showed up, good job. Good job. When was the last time a judge in open court told somebody standing at the stand, hey, good job? Off they go. Next person. Yeah. Julie, man, you missed drug testing. You didn't come Saturday. Oh, my car broke down. Oh, crap, you're not in standard supervision where your car breaks down, you're in my court. That's a positive test. Now, we have a series of sanctions available. If it's the 3rd time she's done, she's probably going to jail, maybe getting thrown out. Or she may sit in jail till we can get her an inpatient program. Or if it's the 1st time, I may say, okay, you're going to write, what happened? I slept through my alarm. No problem. You're going to write 1,000 times, I will not sleep through my alarm. I promise you, after they've written that 1,000 times, they won't sleep through their alarm again. They'll come up with a new excuse. And then hopefully it'll be a longer sentence. And maybe jail sentence, but a longer sentence if you're right. But we have intense supervision. Our vets, they all work together. They've created their own organization called the Veteran Court Alumni Group. And they meet every Monday night at Congregation Sherry Chamoyan, which is the temple across the street from Lancaster General Hospital. And the group, they get together. It's everybody in vet court and some of the grads, some of the people who made it through the program. And they do their own thing. They've set up their own rules and regulations. They have their own code of conduct, which is stricter than I would have created. So that's great. They use peer pressure to keep the other ones on the straight and narrow. They use peer support to help them do their graduation projects, to help them get to spot A to spot B, so that when their car breaks down, they got a ride in. We do something in my court I've never seen in any other court in the country, and that's push-ups. In the military, push-ups is a very common form of minor discipline. And we stumbled across this some years ago with a young man, and he came up and was interacting with me, and I addressed him all individually. I say, what's up, Pat? And he said, Judge, I went back to school and get my MBA. I said, wow, that's great, Pat. How are you going to do? I'm going to get A's in both classes. Well, I had about 5 people sitting, and the newer people sit in my jury box. I heard them chuckle or snort. So, okay, really, Pat, what happens if you don't get A's in both your classes? Well, Judge, if I don't get A's in both my classes, I'll do push-ups. same 5 or 6 people snorted. So, okay, Pat, that's fair enough. I'll tell you what, if you get A's in both your classes, or if you don't get A's in both your classes, you're going to do 25 push-ups. But if you get A's in both your classes, those 5 knuckleheads that snorted are going to do the 25 push-ups for you. So fast forward a couple months, Pat comes back and said, Judge, I got my grades. I said, I got an A in one class, B plus in another, that's an A average. He's getting his MBA, so he thinks he can do that on me. I said, no, Patrick, you told me you were going to get an A in both classes. You didn't get an A in both classes. You owe me push-ups. And so he starts unbuttoning his shirt to do the push-ups, and a person in the back of the room, his mentor, and by mentor I mean every one of our vets are assigned another veteran. Typically they're older Vietnam men and women because they have the time to do it. But that person stands up, Judge, Pat shouldn't be doing push-ups. He hurt his neck over in Iraq. And I was taken aback by that. And then all of a sudden, those 5 or 6 knuckleheads, every one of them who had snorted raised their hands and said, Judge, we'll do Pat's push-ups for him. And Pat, of course, said, no, I'm going to do it. And so we saw that. You guys come out, you're all going to do push-ups. And from that point forward, we had push-ups as sort of a incentive or a minor sanction, as the case may be, and it's become part of the culture of the court because it's part of the culture of the military. And our goal here is to remind these men and women who have served their country honorably who they were then, rather than who they may think they are now as they fight through different issues. Now, the fun part about the thing with Pat is he came back a few months later and said, Judge, I just got my grades in my course and I got A's in both of them. I said, that's great. 6 snorters, come on up. Wait, Judge, we thought that was only for the first one. I said, no, he doesn't have his MBA yet. And then, of course, he stepped up and said, look, Judge, one of the snorters, Jennifer's wearing a skirt. She can't do push-ups. I said, no, this is a gender-neutral court. She puts her feet at the base of my bench where nobody can see, and she does her push-ups. By God, she did. And in fact, she did push-ups for various reasons in my court until she was too pregnant to get it done. And we thought that wasn't fair because then she didn't have to go down as far as everybody else. Although some of my guys, as they recover and they get back to life, they're putting on a little bit of weight too, so that's hardly fair. So the object of our court, the meaning, the depth of the court, is simply to give these men and women an opportunity in exchange for what they've given to the country. If you don't make it, if you wash out of the program, if you screw up, if you don't take it seriously, if you think you can beat me and beat my probation officer, then you're going to pay the price. Because I explained to everyone as they come in, I always thought this, by the way, was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man quote, but it's actually Voltaire. With great power comes great opportunity. Well, I'm giving you with this great opportunity is going to come greater penalty if you don't make it. And they have to know that. And so when the various people may wash out, male, female, doesn't matter, they're in front of everybody else, they're washing out, and they're going to get hit a lot harder than they would have if they had just gone standard supervision, because they had that great opportunity. Now they're going to take the greater penalty. So that's essentially how the court runs. We have a team. I don't get any direct funding at all from the county. I get Mary's salary attributed to my court. We didn't hire a special. I'll introduce you to Mary later. She's sort of a vet court superstar we have. But my team meets every Thursday afternoon at noon. And it consists of an assistant public defender who took this job on as extra duty. He's an Army vet. We have an assistant district attorney who took this on as extra duty. We have a woman from the VA who assists us with the benefits and medical care. We have the head of behavioral health who donates his time every week. We have the head of, it's not PA, are they PA counseling now, Robin?
We changed it, but it was HSA.
HSA, yeah, but the head of a drug and alcohol, Vietnam Marine, who donates his time. And we take a look and we review how everybody's going, what we can do best to assist. Now, one other thing we learned is, as you work your way through the program's a minimum of a year long. There are 4 phases, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in phase 1, your first phase, that's part of the phase where you're going to be tested constantly and come into court every week. And when it's time and when you're done with the first phase, you fill out an application talking about your recovery, what are your triggers, what's your relapse prevention, what are the other issues causing problems and the like. And then we learned that in the military, if you want to go from one rank to the next, you have a promotion board. And so they get a chance to sit down with you and talk to you. And so we now have a promotion board. So before you can move from phase 1 to phase 2, you have to fill out the application and meet with the promotion board. And, you know, at that point, hopefully, we'll say you've earned it, you're going to be phasing up, off you go. Or we may say, look, we have a concern about this in your application, and we want you to come back and tell us about that. But we do that. Phase 2, then, they have a little less contact with the probation department. They still come in every Thursday. They still have to pay them fines and costs. They still have to do community service. But if they successfully complete that and go through promotion board, they go to the 3rd phase. And in phase 3, you only have to see me every other Thursday. That's a bonus right there. Yeah, and you're now moving, your focus should be more on community and your recovery than a little less on the supervision, and still continue to pay your fines and costs, still doing community service. And then when you go into phase 4, you have to come forward with your proposal because you have to do a graduation project. So you have to come in with a project that's going to benefit some aspect of the community, whatever you feel strongly about. And it's going to have to be generally about 80 hours of combined service by you or everybody else working on your project. And then when you're in phase 4, you have to complete that. You only get to see me once a month. And again, if you make it through there and you're clean and sober and you've done everything required, then ultimately you'll have a promotion board and say, yes, you're eligible to graduate. We have October 20th, we have a graduation ceremony. We have eight graduates coming up. Some of them are even Marines, which is harder sometimes because Marines can be stubborn apparently. But and when we talk about the graduation projects, we're not saying something that has to benefit veterans. I have a guy just finished his graduation project. He had a car wash to raise money for a cat rescue in East Petersburg. Now here's a guy that's a combat Marine, and what he finds peace. What is meaningful to him is to go to this cat rescue where they get cats and they just need to be acclimated. And he and his wife go and do that. And that's where he finds his peace. So that's where his graduation project went. They're going to be meeting a remarkable young man soon who, for his graduation project, wanted to raise money for a group called TADSOL, Train a Dog, Save a Warrior. And this is a group that will take a veteran who has post-traumatic stress and take that vet to a shelter, oftentimes kill shelters, and they'll find a dog and rescue the dog. And then they'll train the vet and the dog to be certified service dogs. And so this young man got one of those dogs, and we have some great stories we'll share with you. But for his graduation project, he wanted to raise $2,500 because that's what it costs. He wanted somebody else to be able to get a dog. And ultimately, he had a picnic. Everybody contributed because he's fairly beloved. And he raised $8,300, enough for 3 dogs plus. So that's the Veterans Court. That's what we have going on, trying to address some of the issues. Hopefully, we will continue things like this into the future if there are more conflicts. I'd love the court to close down. Best thing that ever happened is if my court closed down because I don't have any vets in me. But the truth of the matter is, this court will be around as long as I'm a judge and perhaps after that. So, what effect does this have on you as individuals? You know, who are these people? Well, I'm looking around the room, I'm seeing young people, they're you. These are you. You know, read in the paper, we're struggling with the concept, do we have trigger warnings and do we have safe spaces and everything else? These are you folks. These are young men and women your age who have to wonder, if somebody walks down the street in a burqa, is that just a devout individual or is that somebody with explosives? Is that bag of garbage next to the road a bag of garbage, or is an IED that's going to do what had happened in that film? Is that car coming at me, or is it just somebody going about their business? No trigger warnings, no safe rooms, and these are people your age. What do we do for them? So we've been around for, it'll be 5 years in January, and I want to introduce somebody who's been through my court.
Okay, so my background, service-wise, I joined the Army when I was 17, in between my junior and senior year. It's called a split option program. I went to basic. After my senior year, I did AIT, which was my infantry training. I went to Iraq 2008 to 2009. And I did a couple deployments after that, but they were training deployments to Latvia. Iraq was the only combat deployment I had. Before the Army, I had run-ins, I guess, with law enforcement, like writing bad checks, like theft by deception, but nothing really too serious. It's just stuff I paid fines for, and I did some probation. After Iraq was a different story. I came home with like some problems, and not really being ready or willing, I guess, to get the help that was offered, like through the VA and stuff like that. But really recognizing that there was a problem, that kind of led me into a path that would eventually result in me getting incarcerated. I got injured, and I was on painkillers for 4 or 5 months for my ulnar nerve in my left arm. And it was one of those things where I wasn't really like showing any drug addict behavior, so the doctors were perfectly fine with prescribing me these painkillers over and over and over, even though I'd blow through the script before it was supposed to be done. But I guess it was just it was an oversight on their part, and I took advantage of it. So eventually when I did have the surgery and everything was corrected and the painkillers were no longer needed, I started to use heroin. And that eventually led to me committing the crime here in Pennsylvania that I'm in Veterans Court for, which was theft by unlawful taking of a firearm. Unfortunately, with drug use like the kind that I was involved in, it's one of those, like, it's a necessity for money, and when I didn't have it, I'd do whatever I needed to do for it, and a lot of times it was the people closest to me that got taken advantage of. I wasn't ready to like face the music, as they say, so I ducked and dodged court dates. I kept getting break after break. I know they'd reschedule it or whatever. Veterans Court, I don't believe it was available at the time, and if it was, I didn't know about it. So it was one of those things where like I just decided to run. I went to New York. I lived in East Harlem on the street. I slept on the steps of a church. And when I couldn't sleep there, I'd go into one of the project buildings, up the stairs to the roof access and sleep on the landing up there. It was a pretty dark period. Until the last time I got arrested out there was for another felony charge. And the judge sentenced me to a city year in Rikers, which was terrible to say the least. And I think that's where it really hit me that it was time to make a change. I had never really been in jail before, and to hear, I think I was mentally prepared to maybe hear like 3 months, but when I heard a year, and when I knew where I was going, like I had heard rumors about this place, and I'd like seen it on Law and Order and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. So that's where I think the seed of recovery, or the seed of like I need to change something, was planted. I no longer had the drugs to self-medicate, so a lot of my PTSD symptoms and depression and stuff like that was left unchecked. In Rikers, they have a large Muslim population, so to hear the call to prayer and stuff like that was a trigger for me. But it was really, like I was just so, I had so much stuff built up inside of me, I was just lashing out in any direction. So I spent time in the box, they call it, which is like the punitive segregation unit. And that's where I really started, like, I was stuck by myself, and I started to daydream about, like, you know, when I get out, and I'm going to do this and that. And I started to formulate a plan of what I really wanted for my life. So I had never really done that before. When I went to Iraq, I made a will and everything, and I really expected to die over there. I didn't want to come home. So Lancaster County Sheriffs came to get me, and they brought me to LCP, which was, it felt good to me, because after, I'll never forget this either, coming down the turnpike and getting close, like seeing the Downingtown exit, and then getting closer to like seeing the signs for Reading, Lancaster, Lebanon. I felt like I was home, like I actually felt good, which was kind of messed up because I was going to jail. You know, so I was there for, I'm not really sure how long, until someone from the VA came to talk to me. My mom put in a lot of work, even while I was in New York, God bless her, to get me into Veterans Court, like to at least get the ball rolling, so someone could come to LCP and talk to me. When Julie Bergstresser, who Sarah Premack took over for, she was the one who came and interviewed me. So after that process, I came into Veterans Court to talk to Judge Wright and everything, and I don't know, I've always liked Judge Wright. Like, he's a very fair person, in my opinion, and he's not, there's no BS with him. You know, you know where you stand, and you know what's expected of you, and I kind of feel like being in the military again. So that, it made me feel comfortable, And I think without Veterans Court, well, I know without Veterans Court, I wouldn't have gone to the VA. The fact is that the people that come into Veterans Court were veterans first. Not all of us are criminals. We may commit crimes, but I think there's a certain state of mind that makes you a criminal, as opposed to someone who made mistakes. Some guys really changed who they were in service to our country, and come back as a different person. And it takes them a while to find themselves, and this is an opportunity to do that. So Sarge is a pit bull. He's my service dog. I got him through a program called TADSAW, Train the Dog Saving Warrior. And I actually found out about the program through Vets Court, because Veterans Court invites people to come in and like sit in on the court, people that are either interested or want to help veterans. And this guy he was one of those people, and so I got involved in that, and it's been amazing. If you fall through the cracks, it's really your own fault. You have to advocate for things that you need. You have to be willing, once you get the help that you need, to take it. I've seen a lot of people, Judge Wright always says to the guys that came in, he said it to me, that it would be easier to go through just regular probation and just do your time. Do your time and whatever. And everyone always gives the same answer, like, no, I want to do this, but actions, unfortunately, speak louder than words. And the resources are there. The resources that I got from the VA and Veterans Court there was just too much stuff for me to take advantage of everything. I have a house, I have a car, I have a wife. In 2 days I'll have a baby. I'm going back to school. I had a job. I got a job when I needed it, and I'm blessed enough to not have to work, and I can go to school, and I have the support that I need, and all that stuff came from taking advantage of the resources that Vet Court put in front of me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Art Westerberg and Sarge. And when I say some of my vets have put on weight, Sarge actually is leading the pack. I've actually seen him on his back and not able to get up because his legs aren't longer than his belly. So, at this point, I'm just going to mention a couple things once again to the four individuals who raised their hands, served our country. Thank you. Thank you very much. Second off, one thing I neglected to mention is this isn't the only dog we have in Veterans Court. We have Hamlet. Hamlet is a facility dog. Hamlet is a yellow lab. Hamlet may be the laziest animal I've ever been around. But Hamlet's function is not a service dog. Sarge, you can see Sarge is paying attention to Art. Sarge's focus is on Art. Sarge takes care of Art. Hamlet takes care of the facility. So that when I open my courtroom, we just cut Hamlet loose. And he'll go and he'll just visit people. When you see a dog, a friendly dog, and you go, oh, you're actually releasing a chemical in your body called oxytocin, and it reduces stress and anxiety. That's his job. That's his function, is just to go around and get loved. not a bad job when you think about it. So we have Hamlet. It's a horrible name, I think, for a covered dog, right? Hamlet was a murderer. And at least if he'd be Hamlet, he should be a Great Dane, but he came pre-named, and the company we got through Susquehanna Service Dog said it would cost me $22,000 to change his name to Snuffles. So I didn't have that money. At this point, I want to open things up. I want to introduce you to Mary Kraut. Mary Kraut is the vet court probation officer. She's been with us since our very first day. Mary was with the drug court team. We have a drug court as well in the county, and I cherry-picked her. I stole her off the drug court team to put her on my team. Every vet that's been in my program, every single one, all my graduates have all worked with Mary. And so when they have to see a probation officer a couple of times a week, that's the person there that does it. We're very grateful for everything that she does. So at this point, I thought we could have Mary and Art, Sarge, of course, and me, to see if you had any questions and you want to discuss anything that leaps to mind. There's always going to be a first person with the courage to raise their hand. Come on, I got 4 vets in here. You guys have the courage. Yes?
Have you thought about doing it for before crimes committed for veterans?
Well, that's actually a very common question I get, because I go and I speak to a lot of vet groups and things like that. They say, hey, Judge, it's all good. What about the guys that haven't committed crime? I'm a criminal judge. I don't get them before they commit crimes. There are programs available, and so what we encourage is, it's called the line to the left. My court meets every Thursday at 1:30, courtroom 5 of the courthouse. That's an advertisement, folks. And we have people in there that can provide VA services, make appointments, help with applications and the like. And we encourage anybody, any vets who are in trouble getting benefits, any vets who have trouble getting appointments, things like that, come on in and identify yourself and we'll take care of you. We also honor all the vets that come in. We have them stand up. I know Professor Glazer's father, World War II veteran, came in once, and you should have heard the applause for him.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he worked at the Flying
He was
Tigers.
with the Flying Tigers in China and India during World War II, and he was invited to come in, and that's, he really appreciated what you're doing for veterans and enjoyed his visit.
See, that's the thing about it, though. I really like that squeak. I can't hear it. I'm not that old yet. Yeah, Mary knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, I lost that thought.
You're welcome, other veterans. Well, some of the people in here are students in a course called Policing and the Courts, and one of their opportunities is to attend Veterans Court as a field observation. So I think they're all here today to hear this presentation, but it's still valuable to go to Veterans Court, see the court in operation.
It actually came back to me. It happens eventually. You talked about your father being so appreciative of what I do. Honestly, this is one afternoon a week for me. But for Mary, it's full time. For our VJO, or Veteran Justice Outreach Officer from the VA, it's full time. There are a lot of people doing what is necessary to get this court done. I just get to be the guy up there and gets to hear the applause. And it really isn't very fair. Court every Thursday, bless you, at 1:30. And I'm glad I don't have a court reporter, because I do that in court, and it sounds like I'm more importantly, October 20 at 1:30. October 20, 1:30 in the courthouse. All you have to do is ask for it. We'll have a graduation ceremony. And we have 8 veterans graduating, biggest class by far. So we're very, very excited about that.
We attended a graduation in the summer.
Right.
Students do.
I think our last one might have been June.
Yeah, right. And that was amazing. Really amazing. A whole lot of all the stops for graduation.
Well, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance. The color guard comes in, and we have the anthem, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and they play the service songs for each branch of the service by seniority. The most senior branch being the Army, the second senior branch being the Marines, and the Navy third. You got to get that straight. You don't want to irritate the Marines. They're more senior than the Navy. I don't know how you have Marines without a Navy, but by act of Congress, they're more senior. But Art's Army, so he doesn't care. Although he, it's unfortunate he's a graduate, because wearing that sweatshirt would have resulted in push-ups. He was still in the Corps for flowers. Were you alive when it won the cup? Art, Ace was alive the last time the Penguins won a cup.
That's right.
Art, what service exactly does your dog provide for you?
So basically, he's like a security blanket. Like if I start getting upset or getting anxious, he'll paw me or lick me or whine at me, jump on me. It's just like grounding techniques. Sometimes we go somewhere and he if I'm nervous the car ride up, he won't leave me alone when we get there. He just takes my attention. And yeah, that's really all. Those are things that like are my triggers. So if my attention's on him, I'm good. But he does other stuff on his own. We did 9 months of training together. But he knows what you're talking about. He'll watch the door. He'll position himself in between me and other people. He's just, like that. I think that's Hamlet came from an organization where they train the dog and they give it to you. The organization I went through, we do the training together. So there's more of a bond. I feel like he knows instinctively like what I need from him. He just does it.
Well, I know the first time I met Sarge was at a Christmas party, and Art was in line for food, and Sarge was sitting directly behind him, so that nobody could walk up behind Art.
Yeah.
And believe me, a pit bull that size, I'm not walking up behind Art.
They turn some people off, but he's like, he'd lick you to death before he ever bit you.
Is it, you said that you're married.
Yeah.
What about, if his job is like to be anything you and, like, does that at all get in the way of?
Well, all right. So that's a good question. Okay. When you go, part of the selection process is finding a dog that you feel you connect with. So, and they only use dogs from shelters and rescues. So I must have met like 25 dogs before I met him. My wife is terrified of dogs. She got bit by a golden lab when she was younger. Terrified, right? So when she saw him, she was freaking out. And they let us in a room with him. He ran right past me and went right to her. And started, kissing on her and loving on her. And he might get in between the two of us, but that's because he doesn't want me touching her. Or, if I'm playing with my son and I'm being a little too rough, or I raise my voice, or I move too quick, he protects. It's funny, when his vest's not on, he's a different dog. Once that vest goes on, it's all about me. But at home, he's not there to watch me. He's there to watch my wife and my son, which is also, it just so happens that that makes me feel good too. So
He provided another service. Art, do you want to share? Yeah. So.
He proposed to my wife.
Yeah. You're gonna have to give up the details. You got a lot of.
All right, so I was planning on proposing to my wife for a while before I actually did it, and I had the ring like custom made, right? So we were waiting on the stone, waiting for it to come back from the jeweler, and when I finally did, I went out there on my motorcycle, like so I could rush to like get out there and come back, and I got him a collar because I know my wife, she's infatuated with him now. She's talking about, she wants to open up like a pit bull farm, like she's nuts. But I knew if I changed his collar, she'd notice. So I stopped at PetSmart, I got him like this gaudy spiked collar, and I had a dog tag made there that said "Mommy, will you marry Daddy?" And I put a ring on there, and when I got home, I changed his collar and let him run around the house. And sure enough, she noticed it, and that's how that went.
There is a discount.
Yeah.
No, but actually, technically, his wife is engaged to Sarge.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about his background before you rescued him?
Yeah, he belonged to a family, and the husband and wife got divorced, and he got passed around from family member to family member until one of the friends or whatever had him, and they just got sick of him, so they took him to a rescue. But like the programs has trainers everywhere. Like the program is based out of Texas, but they have a couple trainers in Lancaster, Coatesville. So the trainer went to the shelter with me, and of course, like, they have to pass a temperament test first. So, I mean, we got really lucky with him. Sometimes it takes a long time to find a dog, and sometimes the program just doesn't have the money to buy the dog and to pay for the training. The training is, like Joe said, it's $2,500 a dog, so it's expensive. Yes.
You said you went to Iraq in 2008.
Yeah.
You came back.
2009, October 2009.
Okay, and I don't think they had already started to hire a veteran. It was getting a job difficult
Yeah. Okay.
before you committed your first felony back.
Yes.
It's just a reacclimation, or
I feel like the hire a vet thing, in my opinion, is a bunch of baloney.
just
I applied at the VA. I'm service connected. I'm supposed to have priority. I'm supposed to have a non-competitive like hiring, right? I can't even get it. I'm a veteran. I can't even get a job at the VA. The government's the one pushing the jobs for vets. So in my opinion, I mean the charges, yeah, didn't help, but when people see veteran and I'm of course like probably bad on my part to put that I was infantry and a team leader and this, that, and the other thing, because when people see that, they automatically think PTSD. I mean, Hollywood, like, if you ever seen a lot of the movies now, like Non-Stop, the movie with Liam Neeson, the bad guys were veterans with mental issues,
Well, it's a disservice the media does. If you recall the shooting in Dallas earlier this year, you saw this guy, he'd been getting treatment for PTS. Well, honestly, if he was truly PTS disabled, he wasn't probably going out in public with a rifle. He was probably sitting in a dark room. And the whole job thing is, I get the vets in front of me. Before I had vet corps, it really struck me, because you get them in front of you, the guys in the military, it's temporary rest. Normally people come in front of me and they're pleading guilty, their pants are halfway down their butts, and I gotta tell them to pull it up and so on. But, yes sir, no sir. And so, okay, why, what, were you in the military? Yeah, I was Army. I was ranked discharge E5, sergeant. What do you know? Squad leader, infantry, whatever. Well, what's going on here? Well, Judge, I came back, couldn't get a job. Couldn't support my family. Why not? Why don't I get jobs? Oh my God. I mean, you're a leader of other men and women. Showing up on time is a job skill nowadays. I don't know if you guys saw the Pacific. It was on HBO. It was a series of stories of 3 different Marines in World War II. And if you recall, at the end, one of the guys was at University of Alabama. And he went up in line to the students, and there's a young lady sitting there. She served, yeah, I was in the Marines. Okay, did you go through this school? Did you go through that school? Do you have this training? Do you have this? And he was like, no. And she finally said, well, what did you do? And he says, I killed Japs, and I was goddamn good at it. And he turned and walked out. He perceived, and that was perceived, he didn't have any skills. This guy later went on to become a professor and a writer, fabulous book called My Home for a Pillow. But it's a perceived lack of job skills, as well as people politicians in particular like to be vet friendly, but they don't always, they puff, they don't always follow through. Remember how much funding I get from my court? But I guarantee you, if I have a press conference, it'd be like those of us who live in Lancaster County where they plow the fields, seagulls suddenly appear from nowhere. It'd be that way. And that's why Hamlet, by the way, is owned not by the county. It's done all on donations. It's owned by the Legion Post. Because I don't want a situation where somebody from our county government is running for an office and they call and say, I want my dog. I can tell them, not your dog. Yes, sir.
I actually have two questions, one for you, one for each of you. What criteria do you need to meet to be authorized to service dog? Is it the VA diagnosis or diagnosis? But
You just need, a diagnosis of whatever it is you're trying to get the dog for. The VA, unfortunately, like their research, they lag behind on everything. So they're not quite up to speed on the benefits of the dog, or they're not recognizing of it. But there are plenty of organizations, nonprofit organizations that will work with you. I had a hard time getting the letter that I needed. The VA won't write a prescription for the dog because then they're responsible for the upkeep and stuff. I couldn't even get a letter from my psychiatrist or psychologist saying that I would benefit from a dog. So the program actually offered to send me to like a private doctor who would write it for me because I have the diagnosis of PTSD and TBI, but
yeah, I guess that was my question, because I mean, it's hard to get that PPA.
it's a GoPro. It really is.
Do you know anybody, because I believe what you're on?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do you know anybody, get them in 1:30 on Thursday, bring it to our attention, and we can start the ball rolling.
And real quick, my second question for you. At the beginning, you said you went to course only for veterans with honorable status. Does that include general with under honorable circumstances?
And I'll tell you a secret, if it doesn't leave the room. We had to start, we are under public scrutiny, so it's only for honorably discharged vets, because that way all their benefits are through the VA, doesn't cost the county any money to notice a team here, and only available to honorable. Well, we've had a great deal of success so far, fortunately, and we're out of the public scrutiny, so we very quietly moved down to general under honorable conditions, general, as long as they either have VA benefits or private insurance, we'll take it. But don't tell anybody that.
Thank you.
How long did you spend at Rikers? How did you care for Rikers?
Okay, I spent 10 months in Rikers. I lost, you get sentenced to a year, a city year, what they call it, and you're supposed to do 8 months. You get 4 months of good time if you don't get in trouble. So my experience at Rikers was absolutely terrible. My experience with law enforcement in general in New York was absolutely terrible. I've had incidents where I got arrested and the police told me I was a disgrace to the uniform. And, how could you do this? How could you do that? How could you be out here using heroin when you were in the Army? And it just like, it boggled. This guy's a fellow veteran, not a combat veteran, but he's a fellow veteran. I would at least expect him to, understand. And like I said in the video, there's a large Muslim population there, and because the population is so big, they do the call to prayer and everything like that, and that kind of stuff. In Iraq, the call to prayer means bad stuff's about to happen. The call to prayer is usually followed by mortar rounds or small arms fire. So it was just, there were a lot of triggers. I told prison guards there that I was a veteran, wanted to see if there was like a veteran house or something like that, housing unit for vets. And Like, no one ever, you know, I said I can't be in here, this stuff, like, it just makes me nuts. It really makes me nuts. And they didn't care. So I ended up serving time in punitive segregation, you know, because I had nowhere to release my anger. So anyone that got close enough for me to grab, guards or other inmates, that's, you know, what happened. And Lancaster is Lancaster was a lot better as far as like how you're treated. And of course I was home and I was going to get to Veterans Court and I was going to get out of there and I was going to get to go to the VA. And so that's how.
I know some counties now have veteran jail, section of the jail,
Yeah.
sections off, and run like a military institution.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in Lancaster.
I know.
Young lady?
Robin?
Mary.
Mary, what is your? What is it like for the probation officer program? I know this is just a job, period.
Yeah, I worked with adolescents and juvenile probation for 13 years, so going to adults was kind of a prize in itself. But moving from the drug court to the Veterans Court was day and night because of the people who were there. And so, like, the gentleman was asking about referrals. There's a referral site on the county website for adult probation and parole. And when you go there, you can look for the treatment courts. So there's applications and explanations of the programs there if you want to look at them further. And if you know someone who is in need of services, tell them to apply. It'll go through a whole process and we'll figure out whether they're good for our court or if they should be directed elsewhere. And they can get hooked up to services through that process. We just had one person come in last week. We're probably going to have one come in a week or two. And we have 3 that were just approved today to be looked at for coming in. So while we're losing some, we're gaining some. For me, it's really, really good, especially when the ones who come in like Art, who was clearly aware of his need for help and was working with us throughout this process. So his gains, I was just at his new house last week, or 2 weeks ago now, and he and his wife now have a huge place for their son and Sarge, and he's doing some of the work on the inside, and it's a blessing, and it wasn't something that was gifted to him. He worked for everything he's doing right now. And I also just appreciate his willingness. You know, he went through the program, he's gone through aftercare, he made good on his promise to the judge that he would do this work. He really is a great guy, and it's an honor to be in service to these guys. We also have some who aren't as fortunate. They're not ready to make the adjustments or able to make the adjustments. They may take longer in the process. They may not make the strides that Art has made. But when they come in, you can see how shattered they are. And then at the end, you can see how much growth there's been. And the judge has a picture of their arrest when they come in so that he can identify them and relate to them. And oftentimes he'll give that picture to them at graduation so that they can see. And it's day and night.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Because they don't generally see that when they come. Her honest answer is the most stressful part of the job is the judge.
Oh.
Because one of the cool things about my job is I went to a conference and I saw the only other facility dog in the entire country. And I came back and said, I want a dog. And what that means when you're the judge is everybody else does the work and I get a dog for the court. So, you know, like I say, when Dr. Glazier was talking about, you know, your father being so grateful for what I've done, really is. It really isn't the case by any means. But we do have Hamlet. And I got Hamlet cards for anybody who's interested. It's his rookie card. So it'll be valuable someday. Yes.
My sister is a drug and alcohol counselor, and she has mentioned to me quite a few people who have been veterans that she ends up getting. Where would I tell her to go to get more information?
On the court itself?
Yeah.
Again, it can be on the Lancaster County Court website. And then it's probation.
It's under adult probation and parole services, and then it'll break down to treatment courts, and then it'll break down to the 3 different courts that we have. It's all one application, but there's 3 different descriptions for each program. And one of the things I tell the people when I do orientations, we are looking for people who have issues and problems related to their service and are veterans, not necessarily criminals who happen to be veterans.
And again, Thursday, 1:30, any Thursday, 1:30, they can come in and we'll do everything we can to assist. For people who are coming in, they need their DD 214, which our military folks know it's your discharge, so that we can confirm service and the discharge status, which can now be something other than honorable. Yes?
How common are veterans courts across the country?
They're getting more common. The first one was up in Buffalo, New York. It started in 2009. It was a guy running a drug court, and he kept running into vets. And then finally, he had one guy that was in front of him and just wasn't getting it. And the bailiff or deputy said, "Judge, can I take him out hall, talk to him for a minute?" And he went out hall, came back in. He said the guy was a different person. And he asked the bailiff what happened. He said, "I knew this guy had been in one branch. I was in the branch. I gave him a talking to, and they just need to remember who they were." And that started, the guy named Rob Russell was the judge, so he started. Unfortunately, Judge Russell is a lower level court than we are, so he can't take some of those serious crimes. But we started in January of 2012. And that's the other cool thing about being a judge is March of 11, I volunteered to take over the task. I got rid of half the committee studying it because that doubles the chance you can get something done. And I said to him, we're starting in January of 2012, and I was told that's not possible, Judge. And I said, yeah, it is, because all that meant is they had to do all the work. In January 2012, we started. We were like the 70th court nationwide, and there's now 300-400 of us. But we're all set up differently. And as far as I've seen, we are the strictest vet court I've seen yet. And the only one that does push-ups. So this, by the way, was one of the snorkers. He was. We do typically, now we do 22 push-ups in court. When I say we, never me. I actually missed something. I had to sanction myself. I made my law clerk do the 22 push-ups. We typically do 22 for the 22 vets who kill themselves daily, or 24 for the total number. We did this past June. The way we set it up is, as I said, phase 1 and 2 people come in every week, phase 3 come every other week, phase 4 once a month. So the way we set it up is week 1 for the month we have phase 1 and 2, week 2 we have phase 1, 2, and 3, week 3 just 1 and 2, and the 4th week of the month we have all 4 phases in. June had 5 Thursdays, dilemma. So what I did is I went into court and I told the people in the court, nobody has to do push-ups today, but if I get 200 total push-ups, there won't be court that next week. And we had individuals coming up doing 50, 60, and they say, how many do we have, Judge? 19. And then we got to the end, I said, look folks, we're really close, we have 197 here, can anybody do more? Nobody, we even had Lindsay Helsen, one of the POs that works occasionally with Mary did. We actually had 833 push-ups. So we didn't have court the next week. I said, okay, we got 833, we won't have court. And by the way, we weren't going to have court anyway, which I thought was important to tell them. They need to remember that the judge is in charge. So it's a cool job. Yes?
Funding, you said you don't want government funding, or some of them fund it?
There's a difference between want and get.
Oh.
I don't get direct
I don't
funding.
even want.
They allocate Mary's salary, her vast salary, to my court. We have a court coordinator who coordinates the 3 treatment courts. 1/3 of her salary is allocated to my court. And so the district attorney's office and the public defender, a portion of their salary are allocated to me. So if you look, I have funding, but I don't get direct funding. So what we do is we have a group that actually fundraises for us. I can't do any fundraising, neither can Mary. It's called the Veteran Court Community Partnership. The military love using initials. So I'm vet court, the alumni group's the VCAG, well, this is the VCCP. And they go out and they raise money for us. So if we need things, shirts or first month's deposit on an apartment or work shoes, whatever, we have funds available outside of having to ask the government for anything. And the VCCP paid for Hamlet and all the Hamlet's care. All the spay carols, the whole area. So, you know, I don't necessarily say I don't want government funding, but I like it without the strings.
Do some get it? Use it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Not us. Man, you have another one?
Or if you don't mind asking, how are you today? Like, not just today, but overall.
How am I?
Yeah.
I'm a lot better than I was saying like 2010. I mean, I used to have, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to go like 3, maybe 4 days without sleeping, or having like 2 or 3 nightmares a week. And when I say nightmares, I mean like thrashing in my bed, like, you know, nightmares. No way I could have held down a job or went to school or anything like that. You know, I can do all that stuff now. I mean, I still have my days. You know, I still go to anger management and I still go to PTSD symptom management, but I take less medication now with having SARS than I did, you know, before I got it. I have a son that I can stand to like be around. That was a couple years ago. I would be afraid to have a kid. I'm afraid of what I would do, you know. It's like a blessing. I just went from a promotion board to get off to have my supervision terminated, right? And the judge always asked me, do I feel, I had a lot of guilt and shame over some of the things that I did over there. Yeah, but I've been able to forgive myself, and I've been able to. The last time he asked me that, the answer was no. You know, I can accept responsibility and alleviate myself the guilt. Like, I'm not guilty, you know, but I'm responsible for the things that happened. You know, it was my finger that pulled the trigger, but it wasn't. My intentions weren't, you know, in malice. But I mean, yes, I'm completely different. I've been like 5 people in my lifetime. Guy before I left for Iraq, guy in Iraq, guy after Iraq, and now this guy. So.
That from a guy who used to sit in my jury box, not talk to anyone.
I had the same seat because I had to be in a position where I felt comfortable, and I had the same seat, and like the first couple times was rough because the people in the court didn't know me, you know, my fellow participants, but once like we got to know each other, that's how strong the bond is. No one would sit in my seat, and if there were new people that came in and I wasn't in the courtroom yet, the guys that knew me would be like, hey, don't sit in this seat. Like everyone just takes care of each other. It's just like the military.
Another thing you can maybe use to visualize the change in Art is the first time he came in, he was a graduate when Ace was born. And the first time he came in, graduates come once every 3 months. First time he came in, he had the camo front vest on, right? That you used to be able to put the Kevlar and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had a plate carrier, but
and you put ammunition clips and grenades, whatever it might be. Well, he comes in wearing that, but what I see is a head, arms and legs. And, you know, it's like, and baby bottles. So that was our first vet court baby. 2 months later, our first female graduate had her baby, a daughter, Ava. And I've already reserved seats for when Ace and Ava get married. And I might even perform the ceremony. I might be dead by then.
Yeah, to say my life has done a complete 180 is an understatement.
Yes, sir, in the back.
I wanted to have a question for you, Art.
Yes.
But before I ask you a question, I wanted to thank you and all the veterans for your service.
Thanks for the support.
Where are our vets again? Why don't they just stand up? I know we got, go ahead, up you go. Stand up. Come on, you know how to follow orders. Even he got involved.
Well, my question for you was, at Rikers and now, how does the call to prayer affect you?
Things like that are still triggers, but now I have the tools to deal with them. You know, like for instance, when all that stuff was going on in Jersey with those trash cans, I had really bad anxiety driving in the car, especially walking down the street past garbage cans. You know, but I have like the tools and stuff and the knowledge to like keep myself in check. You know, some things I stay away from. I don't watch movies like Black Hawk Down. I don't watch you know, like documentaries on Iraq. Even though I love sometimes to reminisce, and I would love to watch the videos that I have from when I was over there and look at the pictures, but which I used to do like religiously, but I can't do that stuff. You know, that stuff keeps me sick. So.
And certain triggers like smell, if I recall, diesel fumes was a trigger.
Yeah, I was already a patient at the VA. I lived there for a year. And when I was there, I was in a work program, and I was responsible for like wheelchairs and stuff. So I was returning a wheelchair one day, and a guy had a heart attack checking in and fell back, cracked his head open, and everyone just stood around, right? So of course, me being me, the first thing I did was, rip my shirt off, picked his head up, held my shirt to the back of his head, and I was pretty okay. And then a police officer showed up, and as soon as his radio cracked, I was in a different place. And I could smell sulfur, I could feel heat on my neck. I thought I heard my squad leader's voice over the radio, and I was jacked up. And things like that would have led me, I would have ran out of there, found the closest dope dealer I could, and got high. But I was able to calm myself down. It was a wreck for a couple hours, but it's just stuff like that. I've been through every treatment that the VA offers, like imagery rehearsal, symptom management, cognitive processing, everything. And it's only because of that I don't fall to pieces every time someone drops something or someone says something to me that I don't like or I don't agree with.
I'll give $5 of anybody who cuts themselves enough that he has to wrap that shirt around.
Yeah.
He did that on
he just
purpose.
wants a shirt.
What's that? No, he does that on purpose to irritate the judge. And I can't sanction him, and he's a graduate. I can't even make him do push-ups, although if he volunteered. Yes.
So I went to a panel 2 weeks ago on a trigger word use behavior in college, in a university setting. How do you feel about trigger word use behavior with your past and now?
What are
The trigger warnings that they give classes, there may be material that is offensive or could trigger.
Oh, like the professor does that before
Yeah.
he gives a lecture? Yeah, I go to right now York campus hack, which I will be transferring here once I get my degree next semester. But I feel, I don't know, they have like a disabilities liaison or whatever. And so she sends like an accommodation letter to my professors and lets them know I'm gonna have the dog, and that I can get a different place to take the test so I'm not distracted and stuff like that. And usually, like, I had that discussion with them before because it would make me feel a little uncomfortable, I think, if someone was like, you know, in front of everybody, hey, you know, for my psychology class, for example, like, hey, we're going to be covering PTSD and the causes for PTSD today. You know, and then I have to, all right, I get up and like walk out in front of everyone and I feel like an idiot, like I got singled out, you know? It's a good idea, but I don't know, I like the fact that I can have that conversation with them in private, so I don't feel like I'm a weirdo, you know?
We had a guy, one of our guys, an Iraq Marine, he's taking courses in Millersville last fall, I believe it was. He took a course here, and it was, had to give a talk or read his paper on some difficult things you do in your life, or stressful things, I think it was. And some of the students were out there, long distance relationships, things like that. His paper was on how to clear a building with an active shooter, going back to his days in Iraq. And while he was doing that, apparently there was this theater below, and they were rehearsing the play, and they had blanks in the gun that he was unaware of. And apparently, when this was all going on, and they started firing off blanks downstairs, he had a real problem. There's no warnings you can do for that. But he also has trouble relating to, you know, stressful thing in your life's a long distance relationship, and he's clearing active shooters from a building. So, what is his problem? You know, it's the shirt.
He wants to he wants to move. You see all those people, he wants to say hi.
Do you have any other questions? Yes.
What do you think were discharged from the military? Did they give you any kind of like reentry program when you came back from Iraq?
Yeah,
How long did that last?
like a day, a
Right.
couple hours. Don't drink, don't beat your wife, don't kick your dog. Have a good time.
So do you think that having the military, are we specifically putting a program that, you know, at least a couple weeks? Something that I think in World War II they used to have a reintegration program. I'm not super familiar with it, but do you think something like that would be beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, they've come a long way since I came home from Iraq. When I came home, they had this yellow ribbon thing, and it was mandatory, but they didn't make sure that you went. So nobody went. They say, like, okay, so when I came home, all the guys that had deployed before me, like my squad leader, who was like, he was just a stud. He was a real hero, right? Done multiple deployments, Silver Star. He said, listen, when we get home, if you want to see your family, there's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I'll say it again, if you want to see your family when we get home, there's nothing wrong with you. Right, so you get home, you get off the plane, they ask you, hey, is there anything wrong with you? Nope. And you go see your family. If you say yes, you're stuck there. You know, so, and your family's literally across the parking lot, you know, standing there waiting for you. So,
From the time he got on the plane in Iraq to the time he hit the tarmac, he was in Kentucky or something like that, right? How long? How many hours?
16, 17 hours.
In World War II, the whole unit would be on a single transport. And then they'd be coming back from Italy, coming back from France, and they'd have 30 days, 35 days, 40 days together with their guys. And that's when they're doing that themselves by the time they get home. From here, you know, one day you're in the sandbox, the next day you're in Kentucky. My son lives in this, it's so great here.
We were conducting raids a week before I came home.
Another thing that was pointed out to me by a friend of mine who's a retired Major General is some complications by modern technology. In World War II, if you had a loved one at home, they would write you a letter. And you would read the letter, and then you would write back. And nowadays, you can Skype. And so you're seeing your loved one there saying, look, the kids are having trouble in school, and we're having trouble making ends meet, and, you know, my mother's doing this, that, and the other. Oh, gotta go now. And you close that. Where is your head as the person over in Iraq or Afghanistan? where's your heart? And it's a dangerous job. You know, you need to have your head and heart in that completely. I'm trying to think what movie I just saw, probably Bradley Cooper, because he's fabulous. Where he's on the phone, a satellite phone with his spouse, and he gets into a firefight. Now, I'm not sure they would have been real hot on that, but, you know, and then, you know, she hears the fire.
I mean,
Her name was American Sniper, I don't know.
Yeah, there's still, you know, there were times where someone dies, someone is injured, they shut the phones and computers off. So they have a chance to notify the family before any of us, you know, can. And when, you know, like you talk to your mother or your girlfriend or whoever the night before, and you're like, listen, I have a, because we're like 6 hours or something like that ahead of them. So when you're like, oh, I have a mission tomorrow, I'll call you right after the mission. And someone dies, and they shut the phones down for days, and you can't get a hold of them. It's hard, you know.
And these are issues we have to deal with because as much as the people serving the country may struggle, so do the families. And so, you know, it's 10 months since you've been with that individual, and everybody changes. He'll come back from Iraq, as he said, he's a different person. You know, he's been 5 different people, kind of like the one we got now. But you change. You know, it's a life experience that you change. And the person at home, you know, so some of what we do is couples counseling because they have to heal too. I'll give you one Bradley Cooper story because I see the professor wants us out of here. The VA wanted me to speak at a function, and our BJO, who I've been known to give a hard time to, asked me to send a photo, so I sent Bradley Cooper's.
I wanted to say to Judge Wright, Mary, that I told the students, and I know that some of them even the class ended at 4:15, some of them are still here. I told the students that this was going to be a really good session, but I had no idea how good it was going to be. And I really appreciate the time that you put into coming here and sharing what you do, and I know the commitment that all 3 of you have to the Veterans Court. And I also know how much of a commitment veterans living in the community have to that court. Because when you go to that court and you see these folks, you know, many from the Vietnam era that come and help out and support the progress of the people in Veterans Court, it's really very heartwarming. So before, you know, you're certainly welcome to continue to converse, but before, you know, the next event happened or people really start to have to leave, I just wanted to say how much I really appreciate this. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing this. I want to thank all of you for your attentiveness, the fact that you were, you know, engaged and interested in asking questions, not on your phone, because we see that, and I didn't see it, and I really appreciate it. So this has just been a wonderful experience for me to bring this little piece of Veterans Court to Millersville and to this justice for all comers, because it does advance the justice system. No question about that.
Can I ask a group one question? The first video, how many people think he pulls the trigger? Just interested. Thanks. We never know the answer.
It is?
Don't know the answer. Did you hear it bang?
Nope.
We don't know.
Let's hope, yeah. Well,
I
let's,
have hammer cards for anybody who wants to.
Warriors, we don't have any.
No, but I want to